An average sales call for most B2B service-based businesses will cost you about $200, and a qualified sales call where the prospect shows up will cost you upwards of $300. Now, I book in between 100 to 150 sales calls every single month without a penny spent to actually book those calls in. That means I save between $30,000 to $45,000 a month on cost to actually book calls because I do it through organic content on three main platforms: Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And just for some context, I run like a marketing agency / coaching program. So kind of like a done for you and a done with you kind of model. So part of it is an agency, part of it is a coaching program, just so you can get an idea of the kind of model I actually use and how I work. So now you kind of know everything you need to know. And I'm going to explain to you how this all works. And by the end of this video, you will have all the context that you possibly need to actually start doing it yourself. And just for preface, this is going to be a raw, value-packed video. There's not going to be any animations or transitions or crazy music or anything like that. And if you need that, then this probably isn't the video for you. It's made for those of you that have a service-based business or sell anything online where sales calls is a part of the actual process. So I'm going to quickly put my screen on now and kind of show you what I'm going to run you through and show you the process that I use to actually get these calls booked in. Now, these calls, like I say, start off on these four main platforms. X, not so much. I'm a little bit newer to X or previously Twitter. But these three main platforms are where I get all my calls booked in on. And I actually made a video, I think it was the last video you'll see on this channel, where I explained how I actually generate leads. I generate between 5,500 to 6,700 leads a month on these channels. And a big portion of those leads are then booked into calls, so on and so forth. And there's a video on my channel, the previous one, that explains how I actually generate those leads. So maybe before you watch this video, or if you've already seen this video, it's worth watching this one that you can see on screen here now, because it explains how I actually extract them off the platform and get them obviously to, extract them from a raw market and get them interested in my service, so on and so forth. So you can take a look at that video. But that is done through the process of basically sifting leads from these channels, from the content I post, the organic content I post, and then of course get these people booked in or get them into the DMs on Instagram and LinkedIn, and then furthermore booked in on calls. Now, in this video, I wanted to explain how I actually get them from the stage of where they are a lead, they are somewhat interested, they care about what I'm talking about, to the stage of where they are actually booked on calls or booked in calls, because that's what you care about. That's why you're here, right? You want to know how you potentially book in 150 or 100 to 150 organic calls a month. And these leads are pretty good. I mean, I do well over 6 figures a month alone. Multiple 6 figures a month through organic content, so you can get the idea of how this all pieces together. Now, I'm going to run you through the actual process, the master checklist that I work with my setters who actually live in my DMs and talk to my leads on a daily basis, and then get them booked in. Because like I say, this video here will tell you how to get them from anywhere into your DMs, and then this video that you're about to watch is going to explain how I take them from the DMs and get them booked on calls. All right. So we use this main checklist, and now I wanted to kind of put it into the easiest format that I possibly could, where you can understand how it all works and really grasp the concept of it all. And I think the easiest way I'm going to be able to do that is show you the kind of checklist that my setters go through with leads to basically ensure that they are good to jump on a call, they are qualified, they are high intent, and they close on those calls. I don't have my stats here at the moment. I don't think. Maybe I do. I'll show you my stats in a minute, actually. But the basic stats that you probably care about is in terms of like show rate, close rate, all this kind of stuff. Now, we have like a roughly 75 to 80% show rate on these calls. We have a 75% lead qualified rate, and we have a 50% close rate. So you can get an idea of the people that come through this process here and get booked on calls are good calls, they're good leads, and therefore they actually close. But I'm going to show you the master checklist that I make my setters go through in the DMs, or my setters by default go through before they get calls booked in. And this is going to give you an idea of how we take a lead, get them on the DMs, and then actually book in calls. So the first thing we actually go through, see if I can drag this down here. The first stage, and this is just a kind of checklist, it just makes it easy for you to understand, to comprehend, is just a location. Now, I don't like to be picky too much of location, but you've got to be logical when it comes to your ICP, where they're based. For us, in most cases, third world country leads do not pass the location stage. And it's purely just because of what we've seen to work and what we've seen to happen when we bring on third world country leads, financing, payment plans, and it all just goes messy from there. So location, very, very simple. Where are you based? Now, this is not necessarily starting a conversation, but this is part of the checklist. My setters are told not to book in a lead if they don't tick every single box on this checklist that we're going to go through. So firstly, location, pretty straightforward. Secondly, initial discovery. Again, pretty straightforward. What actually got you interested in this? What are you building? Now, this question is going to be relevant to you depending on the service that you're actually selling. In my case, it's a program / kind of agency. So one big part of the process is actually understanding what their business is and what they do to make sure they're qualified. If you sell if you're a law firm, for example, you sell B2B law firm services, this message would be different. You're not asking them what they're building, but maybe you're asking them what they use for their law firm practices, or, whether they have it in-house or whether they hire an agency. I'm not too sure. But this is the initial discovery. This is basically starting the conversation, getting the ball rolling, and obviously continuing from there. The idea here is that you can take these message examples and you can frame them in your own way, and you can make sure that you have your own checklist that looks like this. Next is goal identifying, and this is basically understanding if they actually have, not only if they have a goal that we can help them achieve, but if they're aspirational, because we can't really work with people who are not actually aspirational and don't really have anything they want to strive for. Because what tends to happen is, if it's really small, for example, you hit that aspirational goal that they had, they then may not feel like that they were fulfilled or the service was fulfilled because they didn't get to a certain level they didn't even have aspirations for in the first place, right? But also identifying their goal also comes down to their intent. Like, are they actually hungry? Do they want to grow? Is it a painful problem for them? And this can be done for a simple message such as, oh, did you have a specific financial goal you wanted to get to? What's the overall goal? Again, you would make this relevant and contextual to your service, the service that you're selling, and who you're selling to. Make it relevant, but you want to identify their own goal. Again, this is all done for a very natural conversation, but this is just a checklist. Next is current bottleneck and gathering pain. So this is kind of understanding what's actually holding them back from doing the thing. In most cases, for me, it's like it's starting or it's scaling, depending on where they're at, or it's achieving the goal. What do you feel like you need the most help with in order to get to that goal? This is really just to understand their bottlenecks. We want to understand, number one, is it going to be a client that we could potentially help? Do they have a bottleneck that we have experience with actually alleviating? Or is it something that is much more personal? If their bottleneck, for example, is very, very personal and it's not something we can really help with, then that would not be a qualified lead for us. So understanding their current bottleneck is, again, very, very helpful, because it allows you to make sure that the people you're bringing on and you're booking in calls with actually have problems that you can solve. Again, for us, it's relevant. What's stopping you from starting? A lot of the people that we work with, they actually just have trouble getting started, and they just can't get started. So what is that? Because in a lot of cases, the service we provide, the kind of like done for you client acquisition service we provide, although, yes, it's very bespoke, it's very tailored, a lot of information you can learn out there for free. So why haven't you done that? Us understanding why the prospect has not already made a step forward or has made progress in achieving their goal and solving their pain point gives us a good indication of like who they are as a prospect, as a lead. Next, authority drop relating. So this is something that I see a lot of people miss out on as well when it comes to acquiring clients organically through the DMs and their setting practices, is that they don't actually drop any authority. They don't actually let the people know that who they're talking to, that they are someone who is in a position where they can help them, if that makes sense, right? So example here would be, after you understand the goal, you would say, oh, that's great. We have actually worked with a lot of people in this space, if we genuinely have, or building X thing. So I know once you get it off the ground, it's one of those businesses that's easy to scale. Again, this text will be custom and bespoke and tweaked depending on the service that you have. But and a lot of the time we work with people who either are monetizing the skill for the first time or have some kind of agency, some kind of service-based business, and are looking to scale it and acquire more clients organically. So, we are able to authority drop. And if they say, I don't know, hey, we are a law firm, for example, in the B2B space, we're able to say, oh, that's amazing. We've actually helped other law firms in the B2B space achieve X thing, get this amount of clients, achieve this revenue milestone, whatever it may be. And authority dropping is incredibly important, because throughout the sales process, you want to also give them a feeling of what you're talking about, and you are someone of authority who is up here and they should be listening to you, and it creates a really nice dynamic. So authority drop relating also to their struggles or their pains is incredibly important. Let them know that you are someone worth listening to and someone that is important, because there's so many different elements when it comes to setting and actually making sure that you get someone from your DMs and booking a call. And this is something that people tend to miss a lot, because they're like, well, why would I kind of flex on that? What's the point of doing that? But actually it has that subconscious effect of making people think, this is an expert, I want to learn from them, or work with them. Next, we have getting a temperature check on urgency. A lot of this as well, you will see, is very similar to just sales in general. A lot of these kind of points in the checklist, you have this in a sales call, very simply put. So a lot of the things that we're going to go through, you would do on a call, but also doing it in the DMs allows the people that jump on calls, that actually get booked in on calls, to be super qualified, hyper qualified. So temperature check on urgency, is this something you want to do as soon as possible? What is a timeline for this in your eyes? Because this helps me or the team know if this is someone who is willing to wait 6 months before they achieve this goal, or they want it quick, or it's not even the right time. A lot of the time, for example, towards the end of last year, towards Christmas, when we did the temperature check on urgency, we found a lot of people were like, I don't really care until January, mid-January, end of January, and that tells us that we should not book them in until they have enough intent to where they would take action if it makes sense to, so getting a temperature check on urgency is incredibly important. Do you actually want to do this now? Not only that, but then you can hold them accountable to this. If they say this is incredibly important to us, we need to solve this problem as soon as possible. We need to set up this automation in our business because we're losing sales because they're falling through the pipeline. If you're an automations agency, then you can hold that to them. You can say, hey, you told me that you wanted to get started with this as soon as possible. Why are you now putting it off? And it gives you a bunch of ammunition. Next, you have call them out. So this is more so, if their bottleneck isn't clear, it's very, very, very good to do. And this is where you want to kind of call them out and you want to say, why haven't you achieved goal already? We both know there's enough resources out there to learn. So for example, if you're an AI automations agency and you're talking to a prospect of yours and they say, yeah, we want to achieve this, you can say, why haven't you? We both know that, you can learn AI automation yourself. It also allows them, it gives them the kind of opportunity to start selling themselves to you in a weird way and kind of explain why they need help, right? Which works really well. So if I'm a email marketing agency, for example, and I want to work with an e-commerce brand, and the e-commerce brand says, we just haven't, we want to achieve this goal and make this amount of money for email marketing, but we haven't got there yet. You would then say, why haven't you hired someone already? We both know that you can do that. We both know that you can hire someone or you can work with an agency and you can scale that to that level and you can achieve that quite quickly. Why haven't you? And it makes the prospect think, shit, why haven't I? And it makes them start to sell themselves to you where they go, because we need expert help. We need help from someone like you, from someone in your position who can get us to the next level, right? It works really nicely every time. Pitching call with value. So this is an important one as well. So again, after every single one of these boxes have been ticked off through a natural conversation, by the way, it isn't literally like a Q&A, question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. This is integrated into a natural conversation flow. And that's incredibly important as well, because you are having a natural conversation. But after all of these have been ticked off, you go into pitching the call with value. And of course, you don't actually pitch the call until you've made sure that you tick everything off here, because what tends to happen is that if you pitch the call without ticking the previous things off, you'll notice that they say no, or they don't want to jump on a call, and it's for a reason that you can't quite identify. But if you can identify it because you've ticked everything off, then there isn't really a reason they would say no. If they say, I don't want to book it in yet, I want to wait till next month, and then you say, hold up, you told me this is something you want to solve right now, it calls them out on it, right? Same thing if they, if you haven't done any authority drop or relating, they may not book in a call because they don't see you as an authority figure, someone who can help them. But if you do an authority drop and you do relate to them, then they will, that makes sure that they see you as someone of authority, right? So all of these ingredients come into the mixing pot together to basically create some really good outcomes, basically. So pitching the call with value. So this will be after the pitch. After the actual pitch. So where you say, hey, what we can do is we can jump on a call, we can discuss this and this and this, and it's making sure that you pitch it with value, and actually kind of leads on to the next one, which is pitching a call with context. So we want to make sure that the setters tick off these two boxes where they're pitching it with value, where they say, here's what you're going to walk away with, regardless if we think we can help you or not. Game plan, next steps, a clear idea of where you should go from here. That's incredibly important. Not only do our closers do that by default as well, and our sales team do that and make sure that the prospects walk away with value, but the prospects want to know they walk away with value. People are savvy now. So if you have an email marketing agency and you want to get more, e-commerce businesses on calls, you can't just say, hey, let's jump on a call and talk about it. They are savvy to the point of where they know what a sales call is. They're not stupid. They know that it's going to be a waste of their time in most cases. So you've got to give them reason to why it's valuable, reason to why they should care about it. If they don't have that reason, they will not book in a call by default. And then, of course, you have pitch and call with context as well. So making sure that there is context to why they should actually care and why they should actually book in a call in the first place, right? This is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about your business specifically and what we think we can help you with to get you to scale. So you don't just say, let's just jump on a call and talk about it. But you say, let's jump on a call and talk about your problem that you've already told me about, the goal that you're trying to get to, the bottlenecks that you're currently facing, the urgency that you're looking to achieve this in. You use all of their ammunition that they've given you against them when it comes to pitching the call. All right. And then you have clarifying intent. So making sure, is this something you're down for? I like to do this because I don't like to send across call links to people who haven't actually said, yes, I want a call, right? Because again, it goes back to what I said previously. When they have said they want a call, they have committed. They have said, yes, I need this help. I have this problem. Can you solve it? And that's why you say, is this something you're down for? Because then they would respond with, yes, please. If you don't do this, if you don't ask if it's something they're down for and you just send the call link straight away, they may not book in. And you may say, why didn't you book in? And they may say, it's just not that important to me. But if they've already said, yes, I want to book in, then you know it's kind of like they're one step ahead. It's a classic like a financial qualification question on a sales call where you say like, is this important to you? Yes, it is. Is this something that sounds like makes sense? Yes, it is. Cool. Then you go ahead with the actual pitch and you pitch the price. In this case, we're just pitching the call, but we make sure they basically say, yes, I want to jump on a call. I would like to have a conversation, okay? And that just shows that they have intent. And then we can move on to the actual sales call kind of process. Now, to be honest, these are the main things you need to focus on when getting calls booked in. Ticking off these boxes, making sure that everything here is ticked off and you've done your due diligence before booking in a call. The rest of the stuff we're going to go through is like post-call follow-up and post-call sequences and stuff like that. Now, this will get the call booked in for sure. The rest of it will make sure that they show up to the call. The rest of it will make sure that they enjoy the call, they come with the right context, they consume the right information and stuff like this. So I'm still going to go for it. So next you have the sending link with context of the call. So awesome. There's a small questionnaire to fill out to give my team context, and a calendar will pop up for you to book in. In most cases, assuming you have a service-based business or some kind of program, you will make them fill out a form before they book in a call, whether that is a form embedded onto Calendly or Go High Level, or it's like a type form and then book in a call. It's up to you. I'm sure you have your own way of doing it, but you want to give them context as to what they're going to have to do before the booking a call. Because if you say, hey, booking a call here, and then you send them a link to fill out a form where they have to answer 10 questions, that's going to confuse them. So give them context with what the link is. The small questionnaire to fill out, and then you book in a call, and it'll make sense from that. Post-call booking sequence. So this is where, we have our own post-call booking sequence that we do, which is quite thorough. We send across resources, links, keep talking, all this kind of stuff. But you then go into the post-call sequence where you say, yep, confirmed on my end. You can say case studies across here. You confirm the time. So, hey, just want to make sure you look at this. This is a guy that did something similar, and now he's at 20K a month, all right? You're giving, it's similar to up here, authority drop and relating. You're letting people know that you are someone of authority, you are someone they should listen to, and you are someone that can help them. Super important. Confirm time, of course. You confirm that at the day of the call. Want to make sure you're all set for the call. Does this make sense? Any questions? All this kind of stuff. And then you move on to the kind of like if they don't book sequence, and then you can go into this. But again, this is first stage, getting the call booked in. This is making sure that they show up, making sure they have the context, making sure that they have the right time in their calendar and all this kind of stuff. Very, very important, but very easily missed. And then we have the part of the checklist, which is more so if they don't book in and what we can do there. So if they don't book, what we like to do quite commonly, just because we don't want to seem desperate, we don't want to seem beggy, where we say, why didn't you book in yet? You should have booked in by now. We say something like, hey, we just saw the calendar was full. Have now opened up some more times. So let me know once you secure one. Again, it's a very natural follow-up. It's something that doesn't seem desperate, doesn't seem beggy. It's more so just like, it's almost like a reminder. In a lot of cases, people will see this, they'll have the context, blah, blah, blah. They'll all of this will be ticked off, and they'll just forget to book in a call. They'll just slip their mind. Something else will pop up and they'll literally just forget. So you want to make sure that they do not forget by giving them that kind of like that bump, that natural reminder, tells them what they need to know. And then we have follow-up one, which is a voice note. These are actually follow-ups. These aren't actually relevant to the master checklist, but it's also just super good for context if they are not replying to certain messages, or if you're midway through the conversations and they're not replying. So the first one, very simple, just a bot follow-up. The second one, a relative follow-up. So you relate to the conversation they've had and ask them if they're still interested in the goals. There's a check-in. So, hey, John, let's say that you're all the way at the end of the conversation, they didn't book in a call. You can then go and say, hey, John, is this goal that you had still important to you? Is it still relevant? Do you still want to achieve this in the next month, as you said? Hold them accountable. Same thing here, case study, saved video testimonial. Hey, just thought you want to check this out, give them more context, authority drop, follow-up 4. And then this is kind of a breakup follow-up where you say, hey, I'm not going to waste my time here. It seems like you've lost interest. If you don't care, that's fine. You don't want to seem beggy, because what you'll tend to find is that people come back, people come back to conversations, even if you feel like they're a lost lead, they will come back eventually. So when you just kind of sound desperate and beggy, it makes people lose interest, because they're like, damn, this guy really wants me to jump on a call. It's kind of almost has the opposite effect of where it seems like you're not very busy and important, because you're just kind of like saying, please get back to me, all this kind of stuff. So here's a very simple breakup one where you just say, I know from my experience that only action takers get results they're looking for. We only work with action takers. You frame this in your own context, all that kind of stuff. But that's the master checklist. Okay, that's what you need to know. Those are the things you need to tick off before you book in a call. And this is what the funnel looks like as well, from actually getting them to the point of where they're actually booking in a call. So you've got new follower, DMs, consumption with the content, application form, and a qualified call booked. But that is the kind of main piece of the pie. You need to make sure you're ticking off. And the other things just to go through here is the metrics. So what I want to show you here is just the metrics you should track. Don't really look at the results in too much. sorry, just set my mic flying. Don't really look at the results in too much detail here. That's not what's important. What important is the metrics that you need to be tracking when you are acquiring clients organically through DMs. So you need to be tracking daily average leads that come in, daily average book calls that you get, the booking rate percentage in terms of all the conversations that you've had. How many are you booking in? The booking rate open percentage, that should be that, which isn't booking rate all, it's only the conversations that you're actually having. So, you should be booking a percentage of them. Daily cash collected, of course, earnings per book call, per booking, earnings per lead as well, per every single lead that you potentially have, earnings per lead open. So this is in ManyChat, this is of Instagram. So on ManyChat, you have all conversations you have open. Open are actually conversations happening. All is like, you may have sent them a lead magnet and they haven't responded, right? So open is what we really focus on because that's conversations you're actually having, and then booking per 100 leads. So how many calls are you booking per 100 leads? Of course, as you'll see, it's very similar to the actual booking rate open percentage, but these are the metrics you want to actually track, okay? And then again, I've just got a very simple funnel just to show you here to just explain how it works in more detail. Very, very simple, from follower to content consumption, consumer lead magnet of some sorts. And again, in this video here, I explain how that all works in more detail. You've got DMs as well, get them to the DMs. You go through the checklist, right? This master thing here. You then, if they're qualified, you pitch the call booked, either no close or close. Then you have follow-up sequences, so on and so forth, but I don't think that's relevant just yet. If they're not qualified to the checklist, you have a downsell. You give them a product that's more suited to where they're at, and then they go back to content consumption, where ideally your content is valuable enough where they're able to get to a point of where they are qualified, and then they go through again and get to the point of where the checklist, call booked, so on and so forth. But that's it, ladies and gents. I wanted to make sure this video was like reasonably snappy, reasonably slim, but gives you all the context you need. But this is a checklist you need to be following. So take a screenshot of this, make your own variation of this, because this is what we use within our business to book in a lot of calls. Again, these stats are our stats. On rare occasions, on some occasions, so you can get an idea of what you're going for. But yeah, this is what they can look like, for example. But these are just the metrics you need to be tracking to ensure you know what to optimize for, what to tweak and improve and all this kind of stuff. But that's it. That is how it all works. Now, if you are someone in a position where you're trying to acquire clients organically, quick plug, this is exactly what we do. We set up all these systems for you. We deploy setters into your DMs for you. We have all this checklist that we run for you. So if you're an agency, B2B service, coach, consultant, all that good jazz, and you want to acquire more clients organically through the use of social media without paying a penny on ads, considering, we generate all of these leads completely for free, then I'll leave a link at the top of the description. You can go and check that out, book on a call if it suits, and I will see you in the next video. See you there.